when we were looking at the 3 pillars that we put together for this conference, as well as for Social Trailblazer and for Majority in general, I think these 3 pillars, I've said it enough times throughout the day. We're talking about scale, profit, and purpose. And in some sense, Karthik's organization, Jumbotail, and his personal thought process echoes them completely. The fact that he's been able to, in the span of 7 or 8 years, grow the organization to a 2,200 plus crore top line, and at the same time benefit a marginalized section of the society. I mean, it stands to reason that we really wanted to hear from him. Thanks so much for coming over, Karthik.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am very, very happy that we are able to bring together very purposeful entrepreneurs. And I think that the 3 pillars you have mentioned is very, very relevant. And if not, then the whole story will not be completed.
Sure. Thank you so much. So, Umang just briefly touched upon your background, but could you give us a bit more of your background and then how that led to Jumbotail and what you do today?
Sure. So, like most of young students in the country, I actually went to engineering, but very soon, within 6 months, I actually dropped out and joined the National Defense Academy. I joined the Indian Army. I graduated after 4 years of training, 3 years at NDA and 1 year at IMA. And I joined the infantry, Gorkhas. For 10 years I served. I took premature retirement in the rank of major, but in those 10 years, 6 out of my 10 years, I actually spent in combat zones. All the hotbeds of action that you're hearing in the news, Manipur, that was my first posting. Then I was in Siachen Glacier. And then my last posting for nearly 2.5 years plus was in Uri. ID inducted, I'm an infantry officer. Why would anybody dare attack us? Right? Why would we even go into conflict, and why would we be there in that situation at all? And that's the world that I wanted our country to wake up. A powerful, economically stable and inclusive growth nation where we are all waking up with the peace that is guaranteed with armed forces, but we are all working very, very hard in exponentially multiplying our economic prosperity. And my journey towards what eventually became Jumbotail in 2015 actually started in 2008. I started, like most of us in the room, connecting farmers to end markets. Coconut farmers via those days, Nokia N70 was the smartest phone, through an SMS-based system to traders in Delhi. It is 2008. Remember Flipkart? I hadn't heard of this company. And we are very early days of technology, still able to connect the two sides through an SMS shortcode based system and make a transaction happen online. But shipping the goods was difficult, not impossible. You could find a lorry and then send, but money movement, right? The farmer wanted the money at the farm gate, the buyer wanted to pay at the end of the second delivery, they wanted credit, and even when they would pay in cash. So, and core banking as a concept itself was, I don't know whether how many of you even heard this concept called core banking. This today, all banks are linked. We can go to any ATM and withdraw, but that was not the case in 2006, 2008, where you cannot even withdraw your own money from some other ATM, right? So that was a very early days. And I quickly came to the conclusion that very counterintuitive to most of us, right? And at that time, I was just contemplating, just about 6 months before, getting out of the armed forces, I was just contemplating what is the next step, right? And I saw many people, many of our social entrepreneurs, and the term is actually being less in use today. Those days, social entrepreneurship was a very big term that people used to use. And I saw that many of them are emotionally attached to a problem statement. They were not economically attached to a problem statement. They were not able to think from economic point of view. And I did not want to do that, because for me, remember, the goal of getting back or getting outside from the armed forces is to create an impact so wide that India is becoming economically prosperous. So for me, the goal was not to attend conferences or just tell a story, get featured in a paper, notebook, or just to put a check mark in my life. That wasn't my goal. And therefore, it was very clear to me and evident to me that you cannot create an impact in this environment of infrastructure. And number two, I also quickly concluded that the commission agents or whosoever is there, Aarti and all of those people, right? Everybody said that they are actually taking value out of the system. I felt that they are actually adding a lot of value because they knew where the demand was, right? Because they are the only people who could actually give information on who the buyer is and give the trust to the next buyer and also arrange for credit. They were adding a lot of value. So they were not like really taking value out of the system. They are there, and because the market did not know where the end demand was, all these intermediaries, started, adding, being present there. So in my view, if at all you have to remove and create value, you need to actually create the demand first. So I realized that I need to get into a mindset of securing the demand rather than starting from supply side, which is what most people were doing. And then I applied to business school. I continued my journey in learning about marketplaces. I worked in eBay. Then eventually I came to Flipkart. I was director of products there. And then I started Jumbotail along with my Stanford classmate Ashish Jina. And he is a farmer himself. He's an apple farmer. He spent 15 plus months building his own vertically integrated apple farming and supply chain. And overall, I think at the end of the day, he also came to similar conclusions that I did, and we joined together to, start Jumbotail.
Thanks so much. I'm going to take a little bit of a controversial question. Ram in the previous panel just mentioned that he read, was that in a book, Ram? You said the purpose of business is not, of social business is not profit maximization. So your thoughts on that topic?
I'm fairly on the opposite camp. I think any economic value can only be created by shareholder wealth maximization. This is a famous, actually in business school, this is the first entire month we spend a lot of time actually debating about this. Is it about social good? Is it about shareholder wealth maximization? I think in the short term, things appear conflicting. But in the very long term, if this doesn't happen, there is no perpetuity to your cause. And even governments will not be able to fund. Governments get into debt. If it were like governments crash, right? Why do inflation happen? Why countries like Sri Lanka face a lot of problems recently? It's all because that entire demand, supply, production, and what you call as current trade deficit and current account deficit. All of those things come eventually into play. Everybody needs to have an economic model. If you don't have an economic model that is self-sustaining, you are not going to be able to create any impact. Right? You're not going to be able to attract the kind of capital that you want. You cannot start from emotional, nobody is going to fund your emotions. I will be very, very vocal here. Right? It is probably very unpopular opinion. People, you can walk out of this spending your entire day feeling good about yourself, but you are not going to attract your investor. You are not going to attract your future talent. How are you going to attract your future talent? You are very good, you are a really purposeful person, but your engineering head or your sales head may not be. Now, if you tie the success of your organization to everybody in your organization being as purposeful as you are, good luck. This is, the Indian society, for that matter, any world society doesn't have such kind of talent. People have different goals. People have to feed their families. People have to, grow up in their life. And there is a reason why there is money. And if you do not want to accept this fact, I think you should not enter entrepreneurship at all. Or you will be a lifestyle player. You could impact like 1,000 people, 100 people, and you will probably be, under Forbes, some 40 under 40 and 50 under 50 and all of those places. But if you really want to impact millions of people, you need to absolutely have an economic outcome. If you do not have economic outcome, capital will not join, talent will not join, and there is no way that you are going to be able to create the impact that you intended to create.
Thanks so much for that. We really needed to hear that from a person who's done it.
No, but I will also tell you about my other side of the story, right? 10 years in the armed forces, we get a lot of funds. Like when we are deployed in combat zones, we get a lot of funds to actually deploy in those zones for local development. So we work closely with local development authorities. At least in Kashmir, there is a program called Sadbhavana, winning the hearts and minds of people. So Army helps build schools, Army helps build dams, and Army helps build so many local infrastructure. I have seen that when you give something for free, there is no value. And second thing is, you will find many social projects, right? It will come, and then maintenance ke liye paisa nahi rahega. वो डैम तो आ जाएगा, फिर उसके इलेक्ट्रिसिटी वहाँ पे पिलर लग जाएगा, ट्रांसफार्मर लग जाएगा, उसका एक भी स्पेयर पार्ट के लिए पैसा नहीं है. So then what happens? So then everybody puts the check mark, then the price is for opening ceremonies. That is not the future of this country. I would much rather have 1/10 of the entrepreneurs today. I agree and I appreciate the purpose. I agree, and I also recognize that not all of us have the innate talent to tell stories, raise funds, or see it through. But those 1/10 of the people are the ones who are going to eventually create large-scale impact.
So, Paul Graham has famously said, do things that don't scale, especially in the early days. What did you all do differently in the early days of Jumbotail that has helped you, according to you, to reach the scale that you've reached today?
So the first things first, right? So from Jumbotail's perspective, we were, I don't know how many of you people know, let me give a very brief introduction. So we are a B2B marketplace. We connect Kirana stores to suppliers and brands and farmer producer organizations. She mentioned about 3,000 crores or 2,200 crores of sales. All of that comes from a wide variety of food products. 40% of that comes from FMCG goods, including packaged food, but 60% of them comes from staples, rice, dal, flour, and everything. And then we have one of the largest SME logistics infrastructure, because we have, when Kirana stores place order, next day we have to deliver the goods to the stores. And then we have a fintech platform that enables working capital loans for these stores. And we specifically target small and medium stores. So they do not have much support in the ecosystem. They are very small people. They don't get credit and they don't buy in large quantities. They need very, very small deliveries. They are located very close to the neighborhoods. So that is what we do. One part of our business is about identifying entrepreneurs from day one and incubating them for opening new stores. So they have to open a lot of, they require a lot of skill to identify the location, get trained. So we do psychometric tests and the branded stores are called J24 stores. So these are branded convenience stores. And those stores are open in the neighborhoods and we give full support for them, including branding and consumer walk-ins to those stores. So the entrepreneur gets like a entirely full support of supply plus demand generation. So this is what we do. But if you look at abstracted sense, right, we have placed a bet on the Kirana store community. In 2015 when we started, we are the first ones to actually place a bet on this community. We did not have any precedents before. And people were directly funding B2C kind of models. We said that grocery is an extremely large market, and taking the products and delivering via delivery to home using a person visiting for small value goods is not going to be economically sustainable. So you have to get to the you have to get to these stores, and the first question that then came is these people are not having the mobile phones. What do you do? The simplest answer was that, the whole world uses Salesforce, and why did you take order? Then what is the tech leverage you are actually bringing to the ecosystem, right? So we first made our app in such a small footprint, like 4 MB, and those days, 2G, and we didn't even have 3G at that time.
Yeah.
And apps have to download, and people sometimes they run out of packs, and they have to call us, like, please phone pay order le lo. And then you do. We did not do that. We then created a small system where people call us to recharge. And we would recharge the phone. Rather taking the order on the phone, we tell them that aapka recharge ho gaya, 100 rupees ka dal diya. Then you go and you place the order. Then when we come and deliver the goods to you, then we'll collect the 100 rupees from you. So then we became a primary recharge mechanism for these retailers. When people run out of this thing, they'll say, please, they'll call us for recharge. Some of the aspects of our building businesses, right? You have to go daily to these stores. You are not actually, if you don't deliver them daily, there is no value proposition. If you are going once in 7 days, then your distributor is doing the job. So every day we used to go, we deliver, and over a period of time, the density improved, and we eventually became profitable. So the things that I believe are, if you're very clear about your value proposition to the first of all, you have to be very clear about your target audience, right? We didn't choose any kind of large traders and all. We said small and medium retailers have a target audience. They will order only via app. and we will deliver to them every day. Now, how did it improve their life? So today, a store is being replenished every 7 to 10 days when a distributor salesman receives. In our world, they could just place order and get delivery tomorrow, as little as they want. There is no push. We found that a Kirana store had inventory of 6 to 7 lakhs in a store, of which 3 to 4 lakhs he didn't want that inventory. He was pushed by brands. The salespeople will come and say, "Ye rakh lo, baad mein de dena," and all of those things, right? He was perpetually, indebted to somebody because he had already taken the inventory. Inventory has actually not got sold. It is still out lying there. There is, constant. In our world, he doesn't need to invest that kind of money. If he is willing to sell only 5 units, he will buy 5 units. He will get delivered. There is no push. It was a pull-based system. And number two, we did not have to, invest in, so therefore that reduced the amount of working capital that required for running the store. And second is because he could run as little as possible, he wasn't getting exposed to price, right? So, that also improved the income. And the third and more important thing that we found was he really cared about the availability in the shelf. So if he doesn't have, say, Maggi in his shelf, he's going to lose the entire top line. So when we are available, as soon as the Maggi runs out of stock, he doesn't have to wait for his distributor to visit in 7 days from now. He can actually replace it and replenish it tomorrow. So that also increased his sale and that also increased his income, right? So overall, some of these initiatives and some of the things that we did, and we built those supply chains, we built that credit system. None of them were initially easy, but over a period of time, it has become our fundamental competitive advantage and a defensible moat.
No, I mean, that's really great to hear. I mean, 2015, 16, the time frame that you're talking about, in case anybody remembers, is the pre-Jio era. I was in Airtel at that time in 2016, on the day when the Jio announcement came. At that time, even as employees, we used to get 10 GB a month. So for a local kirana wala to have data would have been unheard of. But the fact that you didn't choose to take that phone call, I think was a very bold and different move. I've never heard of something like that, and I think that's
at all points in time we had this carrot in front of us for short-term growth. I will tell you, the conventional wisdom is always sales force, and I will tell you that if you want to create large-scale impact, you have to break out of conventional wisdom. This is one of those conventional wisdoms that we broke out of, that we consciously chose that we will be a tech and tech-only ordering platform. We will not use Salesforce, because by doing so, we were able to create that economic marginal, I would say, surplus of not having that cost, which we could invest in supply chains that allowed us to do daily deliveries in an economically profitable way. And both of this don't go in hand if you actually look at it, because that is what, and that rewiring will take some time, and that is why you need your capital for. That is what you need to go and convince your people, convince your investors. It was not easy for us. It was not easy for us. Probably, people will think outside that, we are all raised, but I will tell you that it is not easy for anybody. Maybe a very few people in the ecosystem may make it easy. But every dollar that comes after huge scrutiny. I'm very sure, even your fund will do all of that stuff, even if it is for a $10,000 investment, right?
Yeah, like about 50,000, but give or take, yes. And so will Ruchira, who's coming up next, who heads South Asia for IFC. I think that's what she will also tell you. Even if they're doing a $50+ million check, they will have, it's literally someone's hard-earned money that's coming to support your idea, your dream, because they believe in the dream. You should, at that point of time, have a sense of why you deserve that, because there are 50,000 other options out there for the investor to put their money, for sure. No, Karthik, just
on this point, right, let me tell one fundamental thing I learned, very important, right? We think that our competitors are our sector. Let's say I would like to think, and that's what one of the investors told me. Your actual competitor is not even, B2B. Your actual competitor is gaming. Your actual competitor is, news sites. Because money is fungible, and an investor ultimately is looking for, some people are sector focused and thesis focused people, right? Some people will say only impact, some people, but most of the investors have a return that are expecting, and then they will go with the current flow. It would be the fintech sometimes, it could be gaming, edtech was, if you look at the sector, I've been facing challenges from An investor he will come from a meeting of gaming or fashion e-commerce with huge gross margins, and then he'll come and talk to me with grocery, and then he will not be able to relate the two outcomes at all. And then fintech, the edtech came, then fintech came, and then today it is B2B. I had to wait for like 8 years to get my sector in limelight, right? So therefore, it's not easy. It's not easy for anybody.
Sorry, I think I've been hogging all the questions and everybody's even giving me dirty looks. If you want the mic to ask a question, please feel free.
Sure, you can ask the question.
No, so hypothetically, so let's take a hypothetical startup which has started out wanting to be a social enterprise. Let's say they want to improve the incomes of farmers, and they've come upon a product that the farmer can also grow over and above their regular product. But they want to pay the farmer a certain amount of money. The market is not willing to bear the same amount of money. Let's say that they want the farmer to also grow product X. They are willing to buy that from the farmer at 300 rupees a kg. But they have a competitor who is selling it retail at 300 rupees a kg. What would you say to this startup founder?
You're forcing me to give hard answers that most of the founders sitting here.
Founders always.
Yeah, I know. So I had a similar situation. I think that the first starting point. So let me peel the layers one by one. Right? You should not start off with this tag social enterprise. It's an enterprise, and you have to come to terms with this reality. Because when you come to terms with this reality, you remove the expectation, the inherent expectation of sympathy and empathy. There are no sympathies and empathies required in this market. I am telling you that a lot of people in this world will be nice to you, but you can't get $1 from them. Learn to differentiate this, right? I am all for support. I'm all for good words. I'm all for, making people feel nice and everything, right? But I am telling you that if you want to create impact at scale, you must realize what the market is willing to pay. That's the final price. So if your competitor is selling, or if there is a consumer demand at 300 rupees per kg, and your farmer is producing at a cost structure that only you can retail at 330 rupees per kg, there is going to be no demand. Or there is going to be some demand from people who really care about what you do, maybe socially connected and all of those things, but it is not going to be large-scale demand. So you cannot start from supply side and say, hey, look, I am doing some great work and these people really deserve something. So I would say that change the game. Even if you go back to the classics like Wealth of Nations and read what Adam Smith has written in his very, very first chapter of Division of Labor, right? He talks about farming itself is not a differentiator. He compares countries like say England and Poland and France and corn, how it is being produced. His fundamental premise, even in 1800s, where that the manufacturing that is happening is likely the one that will have ability for changing the thing. So therefore, a better outcome for this kind of a situation is value addition. Right? Today, if you look at the amount of kilometers that raw produce travels for the first value addition, it will be a lot of kilometers. Right? If you can shorten that distance, if you can actually reskill, today, and GDP of India is, 17% of GDP I think is coming from farming, but close to 52% of the population is working in farming. How are you going to support if you are not going to invest in value addition? That is why initiatives like food processing, manufacturing. So when you think about a farmer, solution, the economic outcomes may not come from higher productive farming. The economic outcome can be coming from processing, value addition that is meaningful to end consumer. It is not like, chemical free and all of those things. Yes, there are a lot of value there, but we see in the market, like consumers are not very, very clear how to identify the differences between a chemical free, organic, they don't know. And then they are saying, give me the best quality at the cheapest price, in the fastest and the most convenient manner, preferably delivered to my kitchen. How are you going to make this economics work? So my answer is Not like, have a business plan that can, interest, that can explain how you're going to do. My answer will be here that if you can find a solution where production and processing can happen closer, I think this is one viable method. Second is reskilling. Like today, I'll tell you that many of the entrepreneurs that we are doing for our J24 stores have never done Kirana stores before. We start from very, very basic. What are the fundamental skills required for running a retail store? Right? Basic mathematics, great amount of showmanship, because ultimately you have to maintain customer relationships. So we select entrepreneurs with these kind of qualities, and then we help them get access to a store. And we help them get trained, we help them get reskilled. So maybe some part of your plan should also include reskilling of marginal farmers to be employed in those manufacturing facilities. So then you need to become a more commercial mindset person.